If you like this podcast, share it with your friends. You can follow us on social media either on Facebook or on Twitter at cleverramblings. If you have any feedback or comments, please mail us at cleverramblings@gmail.com or visit our website cleverramblings.weebly.com. As always, we really appreciate you listening, and now enjoy today's podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is the Clever Ramblings podcast. My name is Ivan.
And I'm Em.
And today we will be talking about three topics. First, we will talk about police, and whether, in a lot of cases, are the way the police trained and the way they respond, is it actually helpful, given a lot of circumstances, or does there have to be a significant change? Then we will shift gears and we will talk about whether, if, for example, you're given a very comfortable lifestyle when you grow up, and if you're given like a lot of opportunities and you have a lot of privilege, how much credit can you actually take for your accomplishments? Or is basically all that you are a result of the opportunities that have been given to you? And then we will finish the podcast with talking about why we think it's important to have friends from multiple different backgrounds, right? So not only having university friends or not only having friends from where you grew up, or it's why it's good to have a very diverse friend group. And with that, we will start talking about police.
So tell the people why we choose this topic for this week.
So, without giving too many details, because I don't know, it's kind of like it's not like for any specific reason, but more so that it's like it's old and it's not like something that I want to like you know what I mean, like this incident happened and I'm putting it like behind me, so I don't like want to keep thinking about it. But
I think it's something you have to talk about, like in general. The topic is interesting, so yeah.
So recently I was walking home, and out of nowhere, this guy just stopped me and accused me of stealing something from him. And as most of you probably would figure, I was really confused because I didn't understand why. Like first of all, I was minding my own business, and I couldn't understand why he was so adamant and convinced that I stole something from him. And then he also thought like it was some type of this elaborate conspiracy that I collaborated with this other person who we still don't know who that is, who was supposedly nearby, and that somehow it was like this big group effort to rob this guy. And long story short, I get into too many details because we're not going to give him any shine or anything because he's a dickhead. The police ended up getting involved, but everything worked out fine. I mean, nothing bad happened. They realized that I wasn't the problem and I wasn't doing anything, and so I think they handled it well. But ultimately,
this is of course not always the case with the police. So.
Right, exactly, and so
that's why we want to talk about that.
Right, and so I was very because of it's been in the news a lot about, especially in the States, about like police brutality and about how police handle things. I was very, very scared when the police were coming, because I was like, oh fuck. I was like, police, I'm black. I'm not even trying to be I'm not I don't know what's going to happen. Right. Especially because I don't know what he's saying to them or what, because he was in front of me saying this stuff, but I wasn't really paying attention because I was trying to calm down. And so I wasn't really paying too much attention to him. I just was really upset that someone was because I was really tired, and I was like, dude, I don't have any time for this shit right now, and I don't know why you fucking with me right now.
But yeah, I think let's start then with the actual topic, and that was your experience, and now let's talk about does the police do then more harm or good?
You have to give them background, Em.
That's
stop fucking up the story.
Okay, then continue the story.
So anyway, that had me thinking about like I said, back to the topic, about just like how police handle things and how they're trained. Because in the States, for example, they're trained, I think, in a much more aggressive way.
Yeah.
And for example, when they're trained to shoot, they're trained to kill. It's not like, no, they're not trying to shoot you in the leg and everything like that. Like when you see like in movies, or like you see when people go into target practice, and you see when them motherfuckers are shooting, or the only thing they have is the body, the upper body. Yeah. That's what they aiming at. They're not aiming for like your leg or your arm shit. They're trying to get your head and your chest.
Yeah, I don't get that. Especially if someone is running away, why shoot them in like the head or the chest? Like if you shoot them in the leg, they can't run anymore. Like they are running away from a reason, and if you shoot them in the leg, they're not gonna turn around suddenly and shoot you in the head or something. They're running away, so why shoot them in the chest or the head instead of the leg where you can like stop them? So I don't get that, but yeah.
Right. And so, just this situation and me being nervous with the police, like being nervous, it made me think about like other experiences that I've had with the police, which have not really been, but so this experience with the police, and it ended up being resolved, and it ended up being like a more positive one because they realized that he was the problem and it wasn't me. So everything went well. That nervousness that I always get with the police, just made me think not only about previous experiences with the police, but just just how the police are trained in general, right? So like, why was I nervous about
you shouldn't be nervous, especially if you didn't do anything. Like there's something wrong with the system if you're afraid of the people that should help you.
Right, and it's like the police are supposed to protect you, and I think in a lot of areas, especially in the States, and particularly in minority communities, and I only know from really being in the black community that we don't fuck with the police. Like it's just not something like when we see them, we behave way different. Like all of a sudden, like you're not even doing shit, and you just like act like you're doing shit because you just like, all right, I gotta make sure everything is this way and everything's this way because I don't want them to mess with me. And
I saw, for example, on TV they teach young black children lessons on how to interact with the police so they don't get shot, because like there are so many incidents where innocent young men are shot because the police think like whatever, just because they're black or they think they're armed. So there are classes teaching young children how to act with the police in the States, and that's like crazy.
Right, and to me that's sad because you shouldn't have to be trained how to react to the police so they won't kill you for no reason. Right? That doesn't make any
like
sense.
Stupid, yeah.
It's like we live in, you live in fear, and these are the people that are supposed to be protecting you. It's like a lot of times, like if something were to happen, like an emergency, right? Like I don't really want to call the police because I don't know, like if like say for example, like if it's a fight, or in a case with that incident with this guy, like if I called the police, like I was scared like shit, like they could turn on me. And they could think that, for whatever reason that I'm doing something, they could just assume shit. And it's like, no, I'm, you have to look at, they're not trained to look at things objectively, I think.
Yeah.
Especially they all come in with their preconceived notions and their biases and all that stuff. And then sometimes that results in life or death. Right. So, I mean, me personally, like I've seen police in 3 different countries. So I've seen it in the States, which have been primarily negative experiences. Like, not like, they haven't like bugged me or something, but like just the interactions that I've had with them, it just, for the most part, it hasn't been, good. I mean, I remember one where it was okay, but other than that, for the most part, you still have this fear of police. And then when I was in Germany, they seemed fine in Germany because the way that they're trained is a lot different. And so they seemed to be fine there. So I didn't have any issues with police or I wasn't really too afraid. And in England, I was afraid until I realized that everything was fine. It seems to really be like a problem in certain countries, particularly in the States.
Yeah, I think in the States it's really bad just because, first of all, the gun laws. I think like if you're a policeman in Germany, you don't expect like anybody could pull a gun on you at any time just because they are available to get. And in Germany, you don't get them. You can't just walk into a shop and get them. You have to get a license and everything. And so I think that's the first big difference, just the amounts of weapons that are circulating in the public in the States compared to example from Germany. And yeah, and also, of course, there are much more like critical districts in the States where really like it's really bad for the people and it's a lot of crime and you don't want to go in there. And I think in Germany we don't have like that much critical places. And so like the police are not as much trained to like interact with these situations. Like I think so there are big differences in the training. And I think you can also see this because when I prepared for the podcast, I looked up the shootings, the police shootings, so the killings of law enforcement compared from the States to Europe. And because I heard it before, like there's a big difference. And so in 2017, 14 people got shot in Germany by police. And alone in 2018, in the States, it's already 353 people. And the best thing is in Norway, because I know that, I heard the fact before, since 2002, so that's like 6 years, 4 people got shot by the police.
2002 or 2012?
2002. So 16
years.
4 people got shot. So I think it's mostly a problem of the training, how to train, because they have to do something right if they can dissolve situations, because of course they have crime, and of course it's not as bad as like in the States. They probably have stricter gun laws and everything, but they are trained the correct way, so they only shot 4 people instead, so they have to diffuse the situations in the other way. And I think like you can work on how to train it. I mean, I think like what they are doing in the States now is the helmet cameras or like the body cams. So so that you don't just like.
But you know the problem with that has been, already, of course, is that like there's been instances where accusations have been thrown about police brutality, and guess what happened? Oh, the police will say, oh well,
the footage
somehow,
got deleted.
yeah, or somehow the body cam wasn't on, it malfunctioned, or something like that. It's like, dude, it's like really, like it's like, come on, yo.
Yeah, and it's crazy that they get away with that all the time. Is there
right? So I mean, there's already been problems with that.
Do you know like a recent killing or like by the police of like an innocent man or woman that like the policeman got like jail time or anything? I just can't remember like they getting off, like they didn't get any jail time or anything.
No, I mean most of the time it doesn't. I mean we've seen it a lot with like a lot of different cases, and I think I heard this argument by someone that was very interesting. I can't exactly remember who it was, but they were explaining why police, like in a sense, why they get off on a lot of like these criminal cases and why they don't end up being prosecuted. Because the way the law is written is that it's already on their side.
Yeah.
So in a sense, it's like in most cases, like they're already assumed to be in the right until it is shown, like you have to show evidence that they've done something wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas it's not looked at as like more equal.
Yeah.
Whereas like, okay, let's see how the situation is. No one is presumed to be right or wrong, right?
Yeah,
because for example, like the police are going into a situation, they don't necessarily know whether the person did the crime or not, right? They may have heard of something.
Yeah.
But in that sense, both parties are kind of like on equal footing, right? Whereas the way the law is like, no, any force or any action that the police does is assumed to be the right one unless it is proven without a doubt that they were actually wrong.
Yeah.
And so the burden of evidence comes on showing that they're wrong.
Yeah.
Which of course in a lot of these cases, right? Like even when the burden of proof is there, right, it's still difficult to convince a jury, right? Because one of the reasons is the way the police are held in American society, right? Like firefighters, police, and military are held very high regard, as they should be. Like I don't think that, you know, when people fight for the country or they're a firefighter or the police or they do some type of public service, of course they should be hailed as heroes because they are, right? the problem, I think because I think about like training with police in the States a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is like when we complain about police, it's not that we're not saying like they're all bad. Even a song like by NWA, "Fuck the Police," was not like fuck all police.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't have been. The song wouldn't have been as powerful. It was like, all right, fuck some of the police.
Yeah.
Like that wouldn't have been.
I know that's also the problem, that like these bad cops like shine a bad light on them, because I think also in the States there are a lot of really good cops and they interact with the community and everything, but there are like this big incidents.
Like I said, I've had experience I've had one good interaction, like, well, I guess two, I don't know, but like two good somewhat interactions with police where like they were cool, like they were fine, like they don't necessarily like, they weren't like overly aggressive or something. Like in a lot of cases they try to like understand like what's going on. So there are a lot of good police out there, but one of the things is that one of the issues is that one, just because like we voice frustrations at the police, one is always is mistaken that we're talking about all the police. Yeah. So even a good police get offended, right? Because it's this whole group in group out group thing. Yeah, where it's like, oh, you're attacking like, I think they call it like the blue shield, right? And it's like, no, like we're not really, we're attacking like part of it, right? We're saying part of y'all are doing some fucked up shit, and as good police, as wanting to be as best as y'all can, and since we hold y'all in such high regard, we hold y'all to higher standards. Yeah. Police shouldn't be held in the same standards as like a normal civilian, because they're supposed to be way better in most situations, in judgment and everything.
Yeah.
And so
and when you have a high responsibility, you should get credit for
great
that.
Power. With great power comes great responsibility, to quote, Spider-Man,
Yeah.
But like, and I think that's like there's always this disconnect, right? Because even good cops don't necessarily always speak up, but when they do, they're silenced or it doesn't really travel anywhere, right? And I think like if like we're scientists, right? And like one of the big things, at least in my field of psychology, is that we have this replication process. Like a lot of our studies can't be replicated.
Yeah.
Right? It's been shown. So a lot of our findings are kind of like, we don't really know whether they're true. But what psychology has done, we said, we didn't look at like, oh man, like, this one person, or I think it was maybe two people who wrote this article, but like, we're not saying, these scientists that wrote this article and believe this, fuck them, man, my studies are strong. And I'm pretty sure there were some people who felt this way, but for the most part, we're like, no, like this is a problem in psychology we have to fix. And so there's whole conferences dedicated to how do we get reproducible psychological research, right? And I think that's the same thing with people who are in law enforcement. It's like, you should want to correct your system, right? You should want it to be the best that it can be. And so it's like, I don't want to live in a world where there's no police.
Yeah, no, right? I need that. That's like stupid.
Right. Like, I don't want to live in a world where there's no police. But the problem is like, there's a lot of things that need to be corrected.
I think there has to be a movement from the inside. Like, I don't know if you can achieve that if by protesting from the outside, by being a civilian. I think like from the inside there really has to change something, because only then it can be corrected. Like you said, like the body cams, for example, they're already saying like, oh, the footage is lost, or this or that. Like from the inside, this has to be said, like, no, we can't do this. Like, we have to, like, justice has to be blind. Like, we have to provide this evidence. We have to be held to even more higher standard than civilians, because we have such great power and we can decide over life and death in a threatening moment. So I think like it has to come from the inside. The question is, how are you going to achieve that? How are you going to do that? Because as the system is right now, there's not really like, I think, the majority interested in changing the system. Because also like
you said you don't think the majority is interested in changing the system.
No, I don't think so. Because why isn't then anything happening? Like, or it's just the people in power are not interested. That's the question. Because why hasn't there been changes already?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I get it, but like again, like you said, it has to come from inside. And I think one of the difficult things is convincing a lot of people that it's actually a problem.
Yeah.
But to me, like just to like wrap it up, like for me, the biggest things that I would change with the way policing is done in the States is one, you need to have police working in an area, and I think this works no matter really where, like in any country. I think this is kind of universal.
Yeah.
That you need, like if you're a police officer in a certain community, you either need to be from that community or you need to be from a community that is similar.
I think
so, for example,
have to be involved in the community. I think you have to like get to know the people, like not only as like in your uniform, but like meet them, like go to cookouts or something like that. So that's, I think, before you could do that before you get like placed in like this district. You like go to the community events, you introduce yourself, you talk to the people like that. That would like really help, because I just heard a quote that was like, if you know them, you can't hate them. And here's the same thing, like, would you shoot them if you like hung with him out like the last weekend, even if he stole something? Like, you think about twice if you really want to pull the trigger if you just hung out with him the last weekend, and
and even the criminal, if they're doing something that's criminal, they won't necessarily react violently towards you because they know you.
Yeah.
Right. So but like that's what I mean. Like community engagement is important. I don't want a person coming to be a police officer in Philly if they're from like Kentucky and then they have no, like they don't care, like they're fresh out of training, they don't engage the community. Because listen, like of course when you go from like a place from Kentucky to a place like Philly and you don't know the environment, and they say it's been like a double murder on like this block, and like the person is armed and shit, of course you're gonna be shitting yourself. Like you're gonna be scared as fuck, and that's the worst thing. We don't want you to be going there and you just busting your gun anywhere, and then you don't necessarily know what you're doing. You scared, everyone's scared. We all like, and so that's not a good, you know what I mean? That's not a good place to be. So like you said, community engagement is important. Two, the way that the training is, you don't always have to shoot to kill, right? Yeah. Like sometimes like if motherfucker running away, just shoot him in the leg.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? Like it's not necessarily or take, like it's not necessary that you have to always like, and then it's like not even that they just shoot a dude, they shoot him like 20 times.
Yeah.
It's like all of y'all need to shoot him. Yeah. Like it's 10 of y'all. And this person was shot like 16 or 20 times. Like, dude, like really?
Yeah.
Like there's no way this person was gonna live after this.
Yeah.
Right? And then and then three, I would say just more internal accountability, right? Yeah. If you know your group, if something's fucked up in your group, don't be complacent.
Yeah.
Right? It's important to, like, if you want to change something, to change it. And so yeah, so that's like, I mean, there's a lot that we could talk about, but I think that's
I think that's enough. Like 3 big points but
the states got to get it together, man, because like I said, I've been in Germany and the police have been cool there. And there's this recent incident that I had, with that asshole. The police handled it really well here in England. And when people have told me that the police are different here than they are in the States, like now I can see and I can believe it. Like I'm like, the way that they handled it was calmer, more objective.
Basically, and how they should do
how it should be. So like I'm really happy with how that situation turned out.
Yeah. I think we talked about that and made some good points. So let's go to the second topic, which was
y'all gonna keep seeing, like, through this podcast, the M don't fuck around. When he don't want to talk about something anymore, he transitions like crazy.
Well, I don't want to make the podcast too long because like it's already like I think 20 minutes, so something like that. So I don't want to make it too long. So yeah, let's continue with the second topic, which was, can you take credit for anything basically? And isn't everything determined and you're just, because you got the opportunities to do this, you achieved that, and can you take actually credit for it? So for example,
okay, so you explain your reasoning for what, because this was your topic mainly. So like you explain why you think this is important.
I'm not sure about that, and I'm torn between, but so basically what it means is how I would interpret it is that, for example, if you go to university and you have a good grade and you have a degree, can you take credit for that? Because, for example, you come from like this good background where like your parents wanted you to be good in school, they like encouraged you and like they gave you all the opportunities. Did you then actually really achieve that by yourself, or did everything that came before led up to that and it was inevitably to like get this degree, or did you actually like gain credit for it because of your hard work? Or for example, did you get this good grade because you're intelligent, because of your genes or your environment, or did you like actually work for it? And so I'm torn because like on the one hand I think like even I got good opportunities and but I kind of think I also worked hard for where I'm now, where I studied a lot, where like in my practicals I gave my best effort. But of course that could also be because of my bringing up, because my parents taught me to be so. So I'm torn between. So like on the one hand I can understand where the argument is coming from. Can you take credit for anything because you're the way you are because the things that came before you? But on the other hand, I also think like I kind of wanna like think to myself, I worked hard for that and I achieved that on my own and I want to take credit for this. But I don't know, man. It's like different. Like, what do you think?
Well, I think I don't know. I really don't think that this is like that much of an issue, because I think, and I think that at least like sort of not only the science but just history has been fairly clear with a lot of this, right? Like so for example, it's kind of like it kind of lends itself back to our nature and nurture argument and like our conversation, right? And I was recently listening to this podcast on intelligence, and the guy brought up like that there's 20% of 20% of the phenomena is unexplained. We call it like variance, right? That's not explained. Yeah. So basically variance is just like variability around the mean. So that reflects like just individual differences. So like how people differ from each other. And the more of that you can explain. So for example, if you can understand 100% of the variance, then you basically have captured everything of the phenomena, right? Because you know in every single context and situation how the phenomena is going to behave, right? But in intelligence research, there's 20% of the variance is unexplained, which this guy, we could provide a link to this episode of that podcast. I think it's from the psychology podcast. And he basically said, well, there's nature, then there's nurture, but then there's also like, you need to just like sort of like break nurture up into external environment and internal environment. So like internal environment is like autonomy, right? So for example, if I'm given really good genes, like say talent for basketball or talent for, athletic in general, because I don't think you're not necessarily given talent only for like, it's been like, here's your basketball gene. But like say you're given like athletic ability, or you're just given intellectual ability. Yeah, creativity, something like that. Right. If you don't use that, right, if you have a bad environment, sometimes it can help you because you say, oh shit, like I'm going to make it despite the odds. And so but that's your autonomy working, right? That's you saying, okay, your nature is good. Your external environment's bad, but your autonomy to do something overcomes that and you become really successful.
So you say then there has to be like one bad thing that you have to overcome, or because like say for example you have a good environment and you have a good internal anatomy or whatever you want to call it, then
autonomy.
Yeah, can you take credit for this then? Or can these people then don't take credit for it, but people who like overcome shit, they can get credit for their achievement, because you have to distinguish the two when, like how you explained it, like overcoming a bad thing, but some people didn't overcome a bad thing. So do you distinguish between the two people, and what do you think about their achievements?
Well, I think like if you've achieved something, unless it's been given to you, like you can take credit in some way. Now it depends on like how much opportunity you've been given. So for example, a person who's come from a very disenfranchised environment and say they win like a Nobel Prize, right? And all the odds were kind of stacked against them. Whereas opposed to a person who their parents were really wealthy or their parents were very educated, they were always sent to the best schools and all these different things, and they win a Nobel Prize, right? One could see how the second case is less impressive than the first, right? Doesn't mean that the person, I mean, they still won a Nobel Prize. You don't just, a Nobel Prize most of the time doesn't just fucking drop in your lap, right?
Yeah,
sometimes,
not, yeah.
I mean, I think there has been cases where like they've been lucky and they've performed an experiment that just happens to win, to be like, oh, they found something.
Yeah, I think
but still
luck
they had to find it.
Big part, I think. I think working hard and then luck is a big factor because
right.
You like there are a lot of great scientists out there that just like didn't get that lucky breakthrough or like didn't work in a field that is proud to be like nominated for a Nobel Prize. So
and so what I'm saying is like whether you've been through a lot or haven't been through a lot or haven't overcome a lot or not, if you've won like a big achievement, and since we're scientists, we're going to talk about Nobel Prize, but in anything, whether it's an NBA championship or a big promotion, or a big business deal, you can take credit to some extent because the tools could be given to you, but if you don't use them in the appropriate way, right, and you just let your environment take you down. In some cases, like I understand, like environment is so bad that you don't really have much of a choice.
Yeah.
But in the cases where you do, which I would say are most cases, like yeah, you may have a bad environment, but you can make it out of that if you try hard enough. Yes, you can take credit for it. And even like you, Em, like if like yes.
What's that supposed to mean?
No. No, what I'm trying to say is like you even said, like, you know, that, you know, you had a pretty stable, pretty healthy childhood growing up. Yeah. Right? And so, but that doesn't mean that like all your accomplishments that you've gotten, yeah, you were pushed like when you were a kid, but like you being a master's student, you getting good grades and everything like that, that's also because you want to be successful in whatever field that you're in, right? If you just sat back and didn't do anything and didn't study and didn't work for it, right?
I think
you wouldn't accomplish anything.
Yeah, I think that's the point I agree most with, that you have to take advantage of the things you are given. Yeah, I think that's like the biggest point that would convince me to like take credit for what I did, because even though I got a good environment and like good like nature, I took advantage of this and didn't just sit back and was like, yeah, I'm fine, I don't want to work anyway. So I think, yeah, you got a point there.
Yeah, and so like, and my favorite example of this is like when we talked about Kylie Jenner not so long ago, right? Like even though, you know, even though I wouldn't agree that she's like necessarily like self-made is very difficult to label, right?
Yeah.
But and even though I would kind of hesitate to say self-made, because again, you do get help in a lot of these cases.
Yeah.
But the reason I would say that when she becomes a billionaire, why she can definitely take credit is, yes, she has those connections. Yes, she had this thing was for her. This thing was for her. She still had to use it. Like if she never worked or she never hustled for the business or anything like that, she wouldn't have accomplished any of these things, right? So she still had to take credit. Now, if a person who didn't have any of that also became a billionaire in the same amount of time, say at the same age, obviously I would be more impressed with them than Kylie Jenner. But that doesn't mean that Kylie Jenner like doesn't deserve any credit, right?
Yeah.
Like so I'm always very against that. Like when people try to like it's called like you don't have to dim other people's light in order for you to shine.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that means like, okay, yes, this person had this, yes, this person had that, yes, this person did this. But it's like a lot of people use that against people, like, oh, you had a healthy childhood, you had this person, you had this mentor, you had this, as a reason to shit on everyone else to make themselves look better, because they are in themselves, they are insecure about their own success.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Like for me, like I know I've come from a lot of like bad things in my life, but I don't need to shit on other people just to make myself feel good.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have to be comfortable in what you're doing with your own life. And so whenever I see people like shit on other people, it's like, dude, it's not necessary to do that. Just do your own thing, be in your own lane, and work hard to get what you want to get. Because if they did it, if you believe that, basically what you're saying is, if the opportunities that were handed to them, it's like, oh, it's so easy to do this, it's so easy to do this. Well, shit, that should motivate you even more. Yeah. Because you're like, well, shit, you should think to yourself, well, fuck, I'm even like better than these people because I wasn't given all this stuff. Yeah. And so I have skills and shit that they won't even have. Yeah. And so when I go for it, shit, I don't even have all these handouts. So everything I'm doing is going to be, you know, that much better. So you should, if anything, I think that should motivate you. Okay, it shouldn't give you a reason to downplay what other people have accomplished. Because I think when you do that, when you downplay other people, you just look like a hater. Yeah. And I think, and no one likes a hater, no matter what field you are. Like being a hater is not cool. No, yeah. Right? Yeah, you're right. So of course you can take credit for stuff.
Yeah. Well, then I think we agree on that there are different, like, how should I call it? Like different amounts of credit you can take depending on how much you overcame and everything, but you still can take credit for it because you took advantages of the things that were given to you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah. You're right.
So basically the message is, if you've accomplished something in life, be proud of yourself, and if you've worked hard for it, be proud of it. Don't let other people, no matter what background they're from or what, don't let them try to like bring you down, because like I said, like your story is your story, and I don't think, most people have been through something, right? Like I don't think that, but be proud of what you've done, and if people want to hate on you for it, then let them hate. You just keep shining. Right, it's not necessary. It's not necessary to worry about what they got to say.
Yeah, that's a good message for our listeners. So let's then proceed.
You don't even remember the third topic. See, this is why we can't have nice things.
What?
Look at you.
I remember the last topic. It's do you need friends from different backgrounds to broaden your horizon, or like?
No, that's not what it was, Em. It's why it's important to have friends from different backgrounds. We're not asking questions. We're not asking. We're not asking.
Think. Maybe I don't think that.
Oh well, then. Oh.
I think that, but that was not the point.
All right then. So then, all right then. Let's see. Look at you. Why are you
I don't want to like meet new people who have like different views.
Why are you trying to like confuse the listeners? Okay, don't be one of those people like we call them like sophists. Sophists. Sophists, we would call them in like my philosophy class. Basically, like people who just argue for the sake of argument. Okay. Whether they not whether they believe it or not. It was this branch of philosophy where these people just like made all these arguments and they didn't even believe in them themselves. They just did it just to do it. It's like, no, don't be arguing shit you don't believe in. Oh man. That's trash.
Yeah, but that's trash. Yeah.
That's because you didn't go to such an illustrious institution as the University of Scranton.
Yeah, sure. I'm only at the University of Regensburg.
Yep.
And I didn't take philosophy. I got straight into biology.
Yep. Shame.
Yeah, but I can tell you about...
Plato would be upset at you.
But I can tell you about the cell cycle regulation, so I got you there.
Well, I took that in biology too, but it doesn't matter.
But you can't do that. Like, all the factors there are so much, and I don't think you did that.
All I need is a picture, man. All I need is a picture with some words and shit, a nice little diagram, and I got you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, when I'm back in Cambridge, I'm gonna bring the shit, and then we can talk about that.
Okay, it's alright. You don't challenge me, it's fine.
Okay, sure.
Asshole.
Dumbass. So, yeah, I think let's talk about the actual topic then. So, because you were so emphatic about it, why don't you start and tell why it's important to have friends from different backgrounds?
Well, I mean, for me, I think really just based on like really experience. I think I had friends from different, like like when I grew up, my friends, of course, were all from where I grew up in Philly. But then then there's like different periods where like I acquired friends from like different backgrounds. So for example, when I went to high school, and then when I went to college, right, I was around different types of people. And then really when I went to Germany and now when I'm in England, like I think, and I've met people from all around the world and from a lot of different backgrounds. And I just think really what it does is it just really opens up your mind a lot, because in a lot of ways you find that if it's a certain issue, right, and if it's like a controversial issue or a complex issue, right, there are a lot of different angles to take on it, right? And the one that you're taking on it, like your opinion, is based on your experience, the articles that you just happen to read, or whatever information you've been exposed to, but that's not all of it, right? So they may open you up to something that you didn't really know existed, or something that you never thought about. And in that way, like I learned, like for me, the reason I love having like friends from all different places is it taught me like probably like one of the most important sort of lessons in my life is that just because you have a different viewpoint than another person doesn't mean that they're wrong and you're right. It just means that y'all have different viewpoints on it. It's exactly what it is.
You have to be careful with that.
I get what you're saying. No, facts are facts.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But however, there are a lot of cases, especially with things like very complex topics, right? Yeah. Like I'm not necessarily talking about like
evolution truths.
Right, exactly. Or is the sun really there? Or not is the sun really there?
Is the
like,
earth flat?
Is the earth flat or not? Like not stuff like that. But things that are very controversial, like how, like for example, how what we were talking about earlier, like how should police be trained better? Or something like that. Like other people from different areas may have different understandings of it because one, they come from the police in their country or their area, whatever, are trained differently or they see things differently. So they have valuable viewpoints that I wouldn't get necessarily just from being in Philly, right? Or just from being in a certain area. So I think that's what I mean by just because something's different doesn't mean it's wrong. Doesn't automatically mean it's wrong. That's what I mean.
Yeah, I think like the most important thing is that they can give you new aspects into life. Because to be honest, like if you're in your community all the time, like you have your certain friend group, you're kind of narrow-minded because all your opinions are built like in this community, and then there comes like this outsider who gives you new aspects in life. For example, we talked about the police. Like I never had bad experience with the police, and so if like I don't have people like you who had bad experience with that because you're black or whatever. It opens
black or whatever.
So yeah, just a minority in general. Like it gives a new insight in like how your life is compared to like other people's life. Like I couldn't imagine like being scared of the police, but when you tell me about it, I can like sympathize with you and can see why some people do that. And not only with the police, like in general, like why do people believe in that? Like what do they think about certain aspects? So it broadens your horizon and not just keeps you in this like small bubble. And not only your preferred opinion of what you think, but it also shows you the opinion of other people and may also change your own opinion because it gives you a new aspect. And if you just keep in your community, it's close-minded and you don't see how other people see the world. And maybe you can also then understand these people better.
Right. And I think that's how you grow. So like, for example, like people who know me know I'm very, like, if you ask me a question, I have an opinion on every fucking thing. Right? And so, like, and I'm not afraid to say my opinion if you ask me, definitely.
Yeah.
However, I think through the years, right, my opinion has changed in a sense that it's evolved. Like, so for example, if I had my own viewpoint and then say you had your own viewpoint and you made valid points, now my new viewpoint is a combination of my old viewpoint and your viewpoint. because I realized that both mine and yours has valid things. So you can kind of like add and subtract, add the good shit, mine is like subtract the bad shit, and then you can form like your own stance on a lot of things. And you're not going to get that if you live in what we call like these echo chambers, where the only thing that you hear is people from like the same walk of life. And it's not even when we talk about friends from like different backgrounds. I think it fundamentally comes down to a question about diversity, right? And I think that not even just friends from different backgrounds is important. I think because you could have people from different backgrounds, but they all think the same, right? They've all come to the same conclusion. Yeah. So it's also important. It's not just diversity in backgrounds with friends, but diversity in mindsets. Yeah. Right? And are they also open and stuff like that? Because that's how you're going to grow. And hopefully, like, as you get older, hopefully that, that's the point. Hopefully you grow, right? I don't want to have the same opinions unless they're correct opinions. Like, I hope that when I'm 40, I still believe that the earth is round, right? Yeah. I don't want certain things I don't want to change, but hopefully like the things that I'm unsure about or things that are very still up in the air, hopefully I have more confidence and more knowledge about them when I'm older as opposed to when I'm now.
Yeah. And I think you also start thinking about things like if they give you a new aspect, like you start questioning your opinion. Was I right? Or like, was I always thinking that because nobody challenged my view? Or do I really think like this is the best way to see it or the best way to live it? I think that's also a big aspect that you start questioning yourself. And then again, like you mentioned, you can grow as a person from that.
Right. Because everyone's right until you're wrong. and so like everyone believes that they're right in a lot of shit until they meet someone that like fundamentally shakes up what they think. And then they realize, it's way more, they either were wrong or it's way more complicated than you thought it was. Yeah. And for me, I think that's exciting. And I think that's just how the world needs to be more like that, because you just have to grow, because we can't, like, ignorance is not cute.
No. Like, you say that ignorance is a blessing, but not in this case.
Well, there's some things that like I don't like want to know, like, but not when it comes to like important things. When it comes to important things, like learning about life, I want to know, like, especially if it's going to affect my life and those around me, like I want to be as well educated on them as I can.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said in this case it's not a blessing.
Yeah. So, and I guess with that, we can end today's episode.
Yeah, and sorry for the long time it took to record another podcast, but right now I'm studying for like an important exam, so that's why.
M is trash, so it's just
I am trash. Yeah, that's like the conclusion of every podcast apparently.
There you go. I'm trash.
And you're always right. Okay, Ivan, sure.
I didn't say I was always right. We just talked about gaining new perspective. I'm just saying that, we haven't recorded because, M doesn't have time.
I have to do stuff too.
M doesn't have time for me.
I have time for you.
We don't talk unless it's about business now. Unless it's about the podcast.
Shut up.
It's really sad, man.
Yeah, I don't even know what's going on in their life right now.
Yeah, I mean, I tell him like, oh, do you want to talk? He's like, I don't have time until this time. Like, oh, I gotta go right now.
Special appointment with my
secretary. Right, it's terrible. It's terrible. He's so bougie now. It's amazing.
Oh man, yeah.
We got like 20 listeners, and all of a sudden you want to act like you sold out already. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
You don't know which ad contracts I already signed.
Yeah,
Yep. German beer, the best beer. Oh man. Yeah, I think with that we can close it.
All right.
Thanks everyone for listening, and we're gonna see you the next time.